I have a business shortcut confession to make, listener. When I needed T&Cs and a privacy policy for my websites, I Googled, found someone in a similar field and did the old copy, paste, change business name trick. Now, when I told Heidi from Law by Design about this, she didn't make me feel embarrassed or uneducated. She laughed with me and said, don't worry, that's you and 90% of the small business community. We do what we've got to do to get going. But as we grow, there are important aspects we might need to tweak in order to effectively protect ourselves, our family, and our assets. So I was stoked to find a fellow small business in Law by Design that's making quality legal advice affordable and accessible no matter how big, small, or micro your business might be. They keep it simple with clear and practical advice, custom legal services, but also super helpful and ready to go legal templates. So if you're a consultant or maybe you have an e-com business, you can get a template that gives you privacy policies, T&Cs, service agreements, and loads more in like 3 clicks. Getting your legals sorted with someone who fully resonates with the experience of being a small business owner and has designed ways to make it easier for us just hits all the good business feels. So check out Law by Design, the law firm that exists to truly support small and growing businesses across Australia. They're at lawbydesign.com.au, and because they love you and want to see you grow as much as I do, listener, you can get yourself 20% off any template with the code UNEMPLOYEDPOD20. Check them out, Law by Design, who I am super proud to have supporting this show. Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Hello, listener and business building aficionado. It is quite the privilege to have you here for the big human stories behind the building of a small business. And geez, it's those BD phases of business, you know, the ones at business development where you're meeting people, making connections, having conversations, pumping out content, you get the feels. That can absolutely feel like it's just going nowhere. It's in this phase that your trust muscle and resilience are just so important. I am absolutely giving myself this pump up right now, and this episode today is going to give you just the pump up you need to embrace that all important business building phase. The lovely Nat, who you're about to hear from, is building a recruitment platform for graduates called Graduated, and she has just so many insights to share from her tech startup world. In this chat, we talk about reconciling with practical versus university experience, meetings with strangers that redefine your career path altogether, giving your business idea, that beautiful space to grow, navigating co-founder relationships, which I always find really, really fascinating, the challenge of market education when building something entirely new, knowing when to quit your 9-to-5 and go all in, and the weirdness of working your guts out solo, unnoticed, through the seemingly endless building phase. I paraphrased that bit, but it just felt right, and I know that you'll get it. Growing a business at any phase is never easy, but it is always worth it. Let's get into the chat. I'm here with Natalia Tapia, co-founder of Graduated, which is Australia's only tech graduate marketplace that is revolutionising the world of recruitment. The purpose of Graduated is to effortlessly bridge the gap between employers and tech graduates, making the process not only seamless and successful for graduates, but also fun. They foster a vibrant ecosystem filled with diverse tech talent and employers to redefine the way connections are made, connecting individuals and companies based on their shared values. So when you search on their site, you can search for graduate and employer synergies, such as team values like transparency and growth mindset, employee benefits like sabbatical leave, or even a day in the life ideal like meeting-free days and shared community spaces. This results in meaningful and values-driven recruitment matches with companies like Carsales, AMP, Atlassian, and ABC all on board. Launched in August of 2023, just around 5 months before we're chatting here today, which is such a potent period of the business building cycle and all of the learnings, which I cannot wait to hear your story about. Natalia, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thanks so much, Kim. So nice to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here, and your beautiful kitty cats in the background who just make me so happy to see there. So before we get into the good business stuff and all of the learnings, I'd love to know how your best friend might describe you.
Oh, my best friend. Okay. Well, I have one best friend in the whole wide world. She is my ride or die. And she would say that I'm curious, I'm outgoing, I'm charismatic, and I'm full of adventure.
Oh, I love that. Have you had any adventures that you'd probably rather not talk about in a podcast?
We've had many adventures together. We actually came to Australia together, and that was kind of like the beginning of my journey here. But she's a wonderful person. And when you just get that real soulful friend who's going to be with you throughout the whole journey of your life, no matter how many times it changes, and mine has changed a lot in the last 10 and 15 years. Yeah, she's definitely that person that knows me at the core.
So take me right back then where you kind of maybe even met her and your journey coming to Australia, all of the journeys before. So well before graduated was a real thing. Who were you?
Who was I? I think before all this happened, and actually even before my talent career in Australia, I think I was one of those people who was just genuinely curious about the world, but also very lost as to my place in it. I wanted to be able to find what I was really good at. I always wanted to know my strengths. I wanted to explore. I was very curious about life. I was very curious about the world. I was a big traveler, and I'm really one of those people who loves my alone time and loves to explore things. And I think for me, it was kind of a defining moment when I came to Australia, because before that, I was in the telecoms industry. I had come out with the travel and tourism A-level. I'd studied in the UK. I grew up in Italy, but I still never felt like I found my place or my space. Very lost in that side of my life. And I was in my mid-20s when I came here. So mid-20s, you want to have fun. You're still trying to work out what are the expectations of society, what's the expectations of life, what am I meant to be doing? Am I supposed to have all my shit together right now? I don't. What do I do? I'll go traveling. So that was kind of my jam before. And then, I fell into this talent acquisition and recruitment space when I came to Australia. And it really, really has changed and shaped my life. And I'm so grateful that I followed that really bumpy road when I first came here, because it has led to where I am today.
I think, does anyone have their shit together in their 20s? I'm 38 now and I barely have any shit together.
Ditto.
So what was your professional experience like once you landed here in Australia and, starting to think about like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to head? What was that like?
So it was really hard for me at the beginning, because I quickly came to realize that in Australia, if you don't have a degree, it's something that's kind of looked down upon a little bit, which, I grew up in a small Italian village of like 700 people. It wasn't as if I was going to go to any big university or even had the money to do something like that. And I also didn't have the awareness as well, what education really meant. It was drummed into me that you'd work in a family business and, that's kind of how your life would go. So it was all a very, very new concept to me. I'd done an A-level in the UK because I could speak English. So I had this love for travel and tourism. So I did a travel and tourism A-level for 2 years, but I never did a degree and I went straight into the workforce. And when I came here, I realized I had these 8 years of experience, but it didn't actually mean anything, which was really, really hard to swallow, because I was so passionate about what I did. I worked in the project management space. I was really passionate about it. I loved the tech space. I worked with engineers and software engineers and really, really loved what I had built for myself in my career over the 8 years in Europe. And then swiftly came here and was told, actually, we can't really do much with that because you don't have a degree. So we don't know how we can help you stay in this country. And I really fell in love with Australia and the idea of Australia, and not for any other reason, but the fact that I could potentially make my life a whole lot better if I stayed here. But I knew that it wasn't going to come easy. So the conversations kind of started, and I had this one defining moment, or this defining chat, with this girl who had reached out to me very randomly on LinkedIn, and had said, I've seen your resume and I'm really interested to have a chat with you, but about a career change. And I thought to myself, well, unless it means that I can stay here, I don't know how I'm going to do a career change as well. I'm already quite stressed about the fact I don't have a degree, and, I'm not really rated for employers here. And she was so lovely. She was so kind. She was so welcoming. And, she said to me, Nat, you've worked with engineers and you've got all this PM experience and you've got all these soft skills. And she really actually made me feel like what I had was valuable and it counted, rather than putting me down for what I didn't have. And so then started my career in recruitment. She gave me this opportunity and she said, would you like to try it? There's a potential opportunity for a sponsorship there. And I obviously got really excited by that because I thought, oh yes, amazing. Like this might be it. This might help me stay. I really love this country. I want to be here. I'll do anything. And such then was born my career in talent or recruitment at the time before it kind of morphed into talent acquisition.
You know, sometimes I'm amazed by these humans who come out of nowhere and reflect you back from what they see. I mean, what an incredible experience to have that from a recruiter, for somebody to see through your resume and see those and reflect that back to you. And that can just happen in so many different formats. You know, it can just be as simple as a friend, or I had the experience with a business friend who was not necessarily like a personal friend yet, like we're developing that, but it's just like, hey, do you realize that you're like really good at this? And like, that's a really interesting piece of knowledge and you could do this and this with it. I'm like, no, but thank you. Those people who give that kind of feedback are so invaluable in this journey. And that stays with me because I think we can be that feedback for so many people. You know, we can give them that guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that has morphed into where I am today. There's a lot to be said for that one person and that one conversation that has helped me strive for those better connections, those deeper connections, those values-driven connections, which is where I am today with Graduated, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But that was a real defining moment, and just being given that space to be heard and also to be valued in what you have achieved so far rather than what you've not done was priceless for me, and just really gave me that confidence to move forward. Because I think a lot of this comes with confidence, and when you are a migrant as well in a country that's not your own. And I think, that's one thing and one conversation out of my thousands that I've had in the last 10 years I will never ever forget.
Oh, I hope that person is still in your world and they hear this podcast and feel very, very good about themselves. So let's talk about the spark of the business idea for Graduated. When did it start to come into your mind, start forming, start germinating into a little seed of something?
So around about 2016, I moved out of that agency role that this lovely girl hooked me up with when I first started in recruitment. I moved out of that and I realized there's probably something more that I want to do. And I don't think that traditional agency recruitment really hit all the tones with me, because it just, in terms of my values and in terms of the way that they work, the majority of them, I couldn't feel an alignment there. So I thought, well, maybe I can chase something that's a little bit more connected, in the sense that I'm working with the one client, I'm showcasing the one brand, I'm part of the one team, because I'm a real feely person. And sometimes it's kind of like my worst enemy, and other times it's like my greatest gift. It's just, I'm very connected with people, and I'm very human centered, and I really care about people, and I care about equality, and I care about fairness. And I think that's been ingrained in me since I was a young child, because I can kind of now reflect back and see how my values have grown as a person over my experiences. So I really cared about that. And I moved into this role in 2016 with a business, and they didn't have a grad program, didn't have anything in play, but they were building a big tech team, a big engineering team, which was on my list of to do to help them out with. But also we were looking to go into that graduate space. And so obviously with that little project came this whole research piece about graduates, about building grad tech teams, about the partnerships, about where to find them, about how to engage them, how to recruit them, all these sorts of things. And I was a one-man band in this talent team. I had HR coordinators and people there with me, but I was the only person doing talent acquisition. So what do you do when you don't know? You go out and you find out, you have conversations, you talk to people, you connect with people, you ask questions. And so that was the beginning of me realizing that the graduates I then started to place were just, it's so hard to explain. They were almost so amazed that I helped them find a job. They were almost so grateful, to the point where I remember one day I was actually in the office, and this graduate, this software engineering graduate I just hired, had come in and he'd bought me a bottle of wine and written a card and said, because of you, my family has a chance in Australia. Wow. And he was an overseas student that had just taken up a graduate 465 or 495, whatever the visa is, postgraduate visa. Didn't think he was going to get an opportunity. Thought, my God, there's so many people out there that have got more skills than me and I'm not going to get placed. And we got him this opportunity. He got this role at the price that he wanted. and he had a fiance. Even though he's a young kid, he had a fiance and she was pregnant, and he had tears in his eyes. And that was just the beginning of the stories with these graduates that then came to me and said, Nat, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't speak to you. Like, you gave me confidence, you made me believe, you got me this job, or you put me in touch with someone who hired me, or whatever it was. And it was like, I don't understand. I can't be this first person. Like, or is this just a real disconnect here? Is there something that's missing here? These kids or these students are saying to me, I've got no skills, no one's going to hire me, yet we as a business want to hire those people. Why aren't we connecting? Like, where are we missing each other? And so I realized that there was this big disconnect, and that started this whole thought process around, well, if they don't have skills, what are we going to match them on? Values, obviously, because if you're going to match someone with a business or a partner or whoever it is, a friend, you have to match on shared values to be able to have an enduring relationship in whatever it is that you do. So removing the skills, values obviously came about, and that's really important for me too in my hiring practices anyway, even if they're senior people. So that kind of started that whole process about how do I build a place where there's a community of employers and graduates that want to come together and allow them to facilitate that crucial connection, but based on what they do have, not what they don't have, which was where I came from, right?
That must have felt like a really daunting task at that stage, because it's one of those ideas that you're like, wow, this is going to be awesome from a human perspective, but technologically, how do I make this a real thing? I've had a couple of ideas that haven't had the staying power for me. As we do as entrepreneurs, we have a million random ideas that ends up in scrumpled up paper on the floor, but a lot of them have been tech based, and I've gone fantastic, but it's like, oh my God, how and who? And that sort of stops me from going on that journey. So like, what were your steps around that, and who did you seek out, and how did you seek out information to get you going?
Well, originally the idea wasn't what Graduated is today. It was derived on that sort of idea, but it was more, I guess, trying to encompass all the problems that I'd come across in talent and HR, right? Which then you kind of reflect and go, well, I can't solve every problem in the world, so why am I trying to do it all here? I think you then go on this journey, because from 2016 to 2020, it was in my mind. It was an idea. It was something. It was a seed, and it was germinating. And the more I experienced in my talent career, the more Graduated took shape. And I started to realize, what were the key indicators? What's really important? What is an actual problem that I can solve? Not 10 problems that I want to solve, but what's the one that I really care about, that resonates with me, that I could potentially solve? And so just before COVID, this conversation happened with my co-founder, who is actually a person I've worked very closely with and hired grad teams with. So we've been on this journey together for many years, and we've always come back going, what the fuck? Like, where are the graduates? Why can't we hire them? Why is it so hard when we find them? Why do they feel this way? Or why were they so lost in the first place? Or, my God, this person's a gem. Like, how have they not been snapped up before? And all of these conversations that have happened with me and my co-founder. And I think we both had this realization that there was this significant gap in that space. And so then led to a conversation in the bar about, literally a traditional conversation in the bar. It really was over a drink in a bar. I said, I really would like to do more. I want to do more. I don't feel like I'm doing enough in what I'm doing day to day in my career. I want to give more. I want to help more. And knowing that 56% of students are from overseas, knowing that I came from that area too, and that I was a migrant, I just think it just tugged on all of my heartstrings and showed me this way to working on something that I'm passionate about, but that's also part of my purpose. So we had these conversations, and then, lockdown happened, and we were like, great, well, we're stuck at home. I've got no family, no friends. I don't live with anyone. I'm alone with my 2 lovely cats. I want to solve problems. Like, I want to do great things. I don't want to just be sat in my 9-to-5 job doing the same old, I want to do something that matters, that is going to change people's lives. And so that's when we kind of started the conversations, and I reached out, and I guess we were in tandem conversations about, should we do this? Like, you got the skills, I've got the knowledge, I've got the experience, we both got the experience. Should we do it? And it was at that moment in time we realized, actually, maybe we've got something. Maybe we should hold on to this, and maybe we should just give this little seed a chance to grow. And with that, then came everything. I don't even know where I would start with what came first, but came everything. Just opened Pandora's box for us.
I think co-founder relationships are really interesting, both where they can come from, and it could be someone known to you, it could be somebody that you meet after the idea comes about. But I find them really interesting because I think there's a lot of layers to getting started, before you even get started into a business. And I think we've got those headstrong individuals, which might just be like, bang, we're co-founders, let's go, let's get into it, let's just work, bang, let's just vibe off of each other and get things moving. And then there might be some of those who will take a step back and go, okay, we need to think long term here. If we were to create this company, what would our exit strategy be? Do we want one? Where are we shooting towards?
Yeah.
How do we want to approach this in terms of financials? And, if one person is in a marriage, what happens then if there's a divorce and the business is pulled into it? All of these more complex questions that people might not think about when going into a co-founder relationship. What was your approach to setting up the foundations there, and what did it teach you as you went on?
So it's really funny because I always think about having this sixth sense when it comes to trusting people. And so for me, one of the most important things is that unless somebody adds value to my already existing life or connects with the values of where I want to go in my growth or where I'm going in my life, I find it really hard to find that connection. So for me, it had to be more meaningful. If I was going to go on this business journey, like you said, I needed to know what are our personal situations, what are our financial situations, but also what's our drive for this? Because you can really make a mistake when it comes to finding the right match for a co-founder. Not only just an experience and what they're bringing to the table and how you're going to share roles and, the divide of the company, whatever, but it's also about how much experience, passion, and want do you have for this same problem that I have? And do we match in that area? Because there are going to be really, really hard days. There are going to be dark days. There's going to be low days. There's going to be happy days. There's going to be all of these great things, but we need to be able to support each other, know that we're both in it for the right reasons, with the right values matching, and knowing that whatever happens and whatever comes our way, we're tied now. It's almost like a marriage in itself. It's a very, very big deal. So that's why when I speak to people who are my friends who maybe are in that trying to find a co-founder stage or whatever, I say, you really need to vet these people. It can't just be anybody that you go on the journey with. And let's face it, we all want to have somebody there to support us. We don't want to be a founder where we're stuck out in the open sea on our own, because it's really hard to stay afloat. You need someone there every day to kind of connect with, and whether you're the motivation that day or they are, or whatever it is that you need from that person. So there's a lot of different facets, but I think in regards to mine and my co-founder's story was that we had been through this experience together. We had both seen the aftermath of going through this graduate recruiting and what it meant and what it didn't mean, and where there were misconnections and where there was a gap. And we both had this strong want to bridge that gap and be able to build an innovative solution that would allow people to still keep that human-centered approach while also keeping up with tech and next gen and AI and all the things that are happening now that we need to be realistic about. And I think that it can go down the pathway of having conversations about, oh my God, AI is going to take over our jobs now, so what does that mean for you? But that's not true. This is about keeping the balance between tech and humans, because we're still the population of the world, and seeing that we have an opportunity to be able to solve this problem together with the passion that we have towards it. And then I think the rest kind of comes with that too.
Have there ever been any hairy moments between the two of you when stress has hit an all-time high?
I think everyone has hairy moments. I think the good thing is about me and my co-founder is we can communicate really well. So we actually have a nice style of communication. We're very different. We are the complete opposites. He is an introvert engineer and I'm an extrovert person, Our styles are very different, but we do complement each other. And because we know each other so deeply and so well, because we've been through all these experiences, we kind of know when to back away and when not, or when to ask or when not. And so we have definitely been through some hairy moments. We've been through some questionable moments. We've been through some, oh shit, what we're going to do now moments. But we've always managed to just bring that flow back around, come back, communicate well, talk about how we're feeling, but also not look at the business through, I guess, too much of personal eyes. Try and keep it real business orientated, because otherwise you can, if you get too involved and you're too attached in terms of your personal feelings towards your business, it can also shadow the facts of running a business, right? You need to make sure that you can remove yourself in the right way, and also you can bring yourself in the right way when needed. So I think it's having that balance, and we've definitely strategically chosen the balance of our roles. So who's going to be face of the business, who's going to be behind the scenes of the business, and all those sorts of things. So I think communication is key, and knowing how to communicate in the best possible way when you're going through really tough times, because let's face it, everyone's going to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. Some days it's just a day. It's just a tough, bloody day. And we need to just be as tolerant as possible. I have a lot of admiration, but also a lot of, what's the word? Not jealousy, but just like, it'd be so cool to have a co-founder to bounce things off of. But then also I'm a very, very strong solopreneur. So I think if that person came in with another idea, I'd be like, get out. But no, it must be very nice to be able to bounce around ideas and also share some of that energy associated and have new ideas and new inputs and just be able to move forward. You can always move forward with more people in your corner. So very cool to hear. With that technical side of things and then kind of getting things going, what challenges came up for you in terms of getting to your MVP?
Oh, great question. So because we were building in-house, and so my co-founder is a CTO, he's an engineer, he's a software developer at heart, and he's very, very good at what he does, and he has a lot of experience in it. And obviously I'm technical, but I'm not technical like him. I'm technical in different ways. And so it's first of all trying to find out how I can talk in his language as to what we need to build, because it was built based on, I guess, my experience in talent and how we would see next gen recruitment, but also in a way that is sustainable and doable for him. So the tech side of things actually wasn't as hard as I thought, because I really, really value what he says and I appreciate his experience in tech. And I know that without him, we wouldn't have what we have today. It would not exist, because what he has built is just so great and can't just be bought. But I think for us, the thing is, when it comes to the technical side of our business, when you have a business, you think that you want to be perfect straight away, and you want to have every single knob and whistle, every single feature, every single fun thing, every single branding color, and you realistically absolutely cannot do it all. So it's about, I guess, us getting together and looking at that roadmap, that technical roadmap, bearing in mind we've both had full-time jobs. He still has, and now I'm fully fledged into the business, and I've only just recently left my role. But it's about setting those expectations technically, because I appreciate there's a lot of work that needs to go into it in the back end, and knowing what's going to be right to get that MVP out so that we can start gathering feedback from our clients and our customers, and then build the next thing, because we have in our mind what we want to build, but that doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean it's what everybody else wants. That doesn't mean it's what students and what employers want. I mean, I have been an employer, so I'm trying to build something I always wish I had, but that doesn't mean that that's what everybody else wants. So for us, it was about, let's get the bare minimum bones out to market. Let's make it usable. Let's make it interactive as possible, easy to understand, but also not forgetting that we're doing something that nobody else does in recruitment right now in Australia. We're going for this values-driven approach, which right now doesn't exist. So you have to educate people on something that's completely different and new as well, employers and students alike, and partners and whoever it is that you're working with. So simple was key, basic is key, and then trying to get out that initial MVP platform with then the promise of the roadmap that we know is next for us. Because we had all these features, we have all these great things that we're going to release this year, but it's about knowing time-wise, what's doable and what's the easiest thing for our end users to understand, so that we can gather feedback and then keep building to what they want. So that was key for us technically. And then I guess it's just finding that balance of releases and bugs and everything else that happens in the back end of a software system that you're building, because ours is more like a CRM. It's like multifaceted in the back end. And just setting those expectations with my co-founder and saying, I appreciate that this takes a lot of time for you to build, and I appreciate that you've got to be hands-on coding and building this in AWS or whatever it is that you're doing, and then knowing at the forefront how I can sell that to the end users, because I'm the the face of the business and he's kind of at the back end, but knowing what's viable for us. So we just went bare minimum bones MVP just to collate that first feedback, have those pilots, have them test us, understand, are we going in the right direction here? Have we actually kind of hit the nail on the head where we want to go? And are we getting constructive criticism for us to continue building those next gen features for the platform?
So you mentioned there jumping in full time, which is super interesting. And I imagine at times like really kind of fun to have like that freedom of time, and then, seeing your co-founder and be like, oh, I just wish you were here with me kind of like every day. But we'll go into that so much. I'm really interested in your experience of deciding to make that jump. So looking at what you got to, where were you in the phase of the business when you decided to go in full time? And what was that experience like? What did it feel like to jump in?
So it was really funny, and I've actually been speaking to a few people about this recently when they've realised that I'm no longer doing my full-time role, because there were minimal people that knew about Graduated before it was live. I respect my full-time role, and I respect the time that I spend on Graduated as well. So there was never any convolution or anything like that. I really cared about the role that I was doing, and I really cared about the teams I worked with. And Graduated was my evening or weekend thing. Then I started to realise that actually, when this MVP started to take shape and those pilot companies I've been speaking to for 3 years were, still really interested and whatever, I was at that point where I just thought to myself last year, I don't actually know how I make that transition. Like, what happens? Like, do I just leave? Do I just quit my job and go? Or like, how can I leave my job right now when we're in the middle of all this? And last year was a very hard year for talent, and it was really difficult for a lot of businesses, and my previous employer included. And so, I also had a commitment to them. I didn't want to just jump ship and off I go and, I've got the next best thing and here I am and I'm going to go and do my thing, because I really cared about that. But I also was very anxious and I guess dubious about how it would happen, because I've never done it before. I've never actually gone, I'm quitting my job, I've got this new business, bye. Like, I've never done that before. So I don't know what it looks like. And so I kind of just put it out to the universe and was like, when the time is right and when this MVP gets to the point where it can be a viable product in the market and we can launch, something has to give, right? Because at the very end, I was getting to the point where I was doing my full-time hours, and then from Friday night till Sunday night and any night in between, I was working on Graduated, and it was just not sustainable. So I don't know how it happened, but it just so happened that with my last business, there was a redundancy shape. And my team had already gone at the beginning of the year because we were hit hard by, the conditions of the market last year. And I was always anticipating this change, I don't know, it's going to happen in some way and I'm going to get a sign, or, I was always a big believer in that. And then I went away to Europe mid-year and I came back and I had a conversation with my boss, and, things weren't looking very good at that time for anybody. Everybody was making redundancies, everything was happening. And that was my window of opportunity. And rather than sit in the fact of going, oh my God, I've been made redundant and it's before Christmas and I've lost my job, and I thought, brilliant. This is the perfect time. And if I don't do it now, I'm never going to bloody do it. So just do it now. And it was just a kick up the arse. Like, it was just one of those things where it was just like, gave me no choice, but put me in the perfect position to move forward, because it was just at that time that the MVP was really shaping up and we were kind of ready to go. And that's how I got booted into it. Literally just kicked into it, and I just thought, I'm going to do it. Like, I've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And so many people say that if you're not in it 100%, VCs will say, are you working on your problem full time? That's the first question that they'll ask you. Because if you're not 100% committed, how can you be successful? You can't. And it's not doable I don't think it's doable to have a full-time career and also try and run a startup or give it the energy that it requires for your business to be successful. So yeah, that was my transition. So it was very weird, but it was a very much put it out to the universe, hope for the right thing, and it came about. But it was very stressful. It wasn't an easy transition because also it came very quickly. Like, I thought my time with that employer would be a little bit longer, and I kind of had in my head that maybe this year would be a year that I would start doing things. So it was quite premature, but it was also sad, because when you go through a redundancy, you go through all the motions. I was very attached to my team. I loved the company I worked for. And it was like that shock realization that I was going to myself, oh my God, Nat, you're going to be working on your own now. Your co-founder's still working. You're going to be alone. You're going to be running a business. You got no team, no huddles, no nothing. And so it was like a grievance period. I had to go through this whole, oh my God, I've left my career. Not to mention the fact that when my husband was like, oh, you're not going to get your super paid. And I was like, my God, I'm going to be old and poor. And, I thought about that too. But it was still hard. It was not easy. No matter how much I anticipated and I wanted that opportunity to go, it was still very difficult.
I laugh about the super thing because I worked my journey was not clean cut in any way, shape or form in terms of when I left my role and then started becoming entrepreneurial after that. I've talked about that in many a podcast about how wild and unpredictable my journey into business has been. But I still smile at that in particular because it wasn't until a little while later where I realized, I might have been piecing things together in really great ways, but yes, I haven't accumulated any superannuation in the last 18 months. And I remember the first time I paid myself a small amount, and I did, and business owners, you get these feels. I did it for like 3 months and then I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, oh, cute. I was my own employee for 5 minutes. This is, this is fantastic. But then my accountant says to me, oh, you also have to pay yourself then their superannuation. I was like, oh shit, I didn't budget for that extra 11%. It's such a shock.
Yeah.
It all feels so weird when it's your own money.
Yeah, it's really weird. And you said that you do appreciate then all the things that full-time employment does for you. You do appreciate all those sorts of things, but hey, that's the price you pay to be a founder. So,
and sometimes value, and in terms of doing value, like truly values-driven work, and I think you can absolutely do values-driven work as an employee, 100%. But it's a different type of value in terms of your personal growth that you experience through doing your own thing.
Yeah, that's right.
I think with that. And then the autonomy that you can achieve. I mean, and I'd say autonomy super cautiously because I don't mean you get more time. You actually get less time doing your own thing. But you do have the ability to, for example, we're recording this on a Friday. I'll be working over the weekend. My partner will too. So we took yesterday off and we had a midweek day off, full rest, full relaxation. Don't check emails, don't do anything. And, that is an area of autonomy that you can achieve by doing your own thing. But yes, it also means you work a shit ton more, but, reality. Now, that's really interesting, that journey of redundancy and then leading you in. And I'm a big fan of the woo-woo and the part that it plays. I don't think I've ever been patient enough to allow the universe to give me a sign in any way, shape or form. But I'm interested in then that experience of kind of sitting there and looking at your runway and going, all right, I know I've got this redundancy. You're bootstrapping, so you've got this kind of runway period of getting things up and going. How has that driven your focus in terms of sales and going to market? What's been both positive and negative about that experience?
Yeah, sure. So I think when you first start out, there's this air of excitement. You're really excited. You're finally getting the opportunity to do it. You can be live. You can be seen. You can, especially for me, I kept graduated very quiet. I never shared it on my professional network. I never wanted to undermine where I was working, and I really cared about that professionalism with the businesses I was basically a brand ambassador for. But when it comes to it, you get so excited. But the problem is, and what I've found is that if you don't consistently strategize to where you want to go and what you want to achieve, you can become so overwhelmed so quickly. And this was me before Christmas. I was juggling hundreds of different balls. I was there going, right, I've got to write content. Oh my God, I've got to prepare this. I've got no partnerships agreements. I've got to do marketing. I've got 10 pilots. Shit, I've got to get their contracts ready. Oh my God, I've got to upload their content. Oh shit, what about their jobs? Oh, don't forget the candidates. And and I'm part of Beer Ops, and I've got this event and I've got that event. And just so much can come to you, or you can feel like there's this real heavy weight of, I've got so much to do and I don't know where to start. And I think the one thing that my career has gifted me is that ability to strategize and think before you do, plan before you do. And I think that's probably one of the key things in this, is that I sat down with my co-founder and I said, I want to plan this. I'm not just going to go out to market on a whim, hope for the best. Fuck knows how I do BD. I've never owned a business before. I don't even know where to start. What tools do I use? What software do I need? It was all so much. So we actually sat down one day before we fully launched the MVP. We sat down one day and we started to scribble down on Miro, and I love Miro. we started to scribble down our goals. We had big goals, BHAG goals, big, hairy, audacious goals, which you always got to have. And I love them because they allow your mind to really free flow into that. What you really want. What does the future look like for you? What does the future look like for your business? Think big. But then also those real achievable small style metrics. So we set a few for each other, like with each other, so that we could actually keep on track because, you know, I was very appreciative that he still had a full-time role. I'm now free and ready to go. But also, where do you start? Like, you know, so we did sit down and we did make some plans. That said, before Christmas, it all went out the window because, again, you wake up every day, you show up, but you just, in your mind, you want to do everything. You want to show the world what your end product is. But I can't do that with an MVP. What I can do is I can tell them the story and I can tell them where we're going and what the future looks like for us. But, you know, I can't just be ready to go. And I think a lot of people have this fear of, it's not perfect, I can't do it, or it's not ready yet, I can't do it. But you absolutely can. And every single business started from somewhere. But I think what I learned in that chaos period before Christmas was that connections and conversations have so much value, because everything that I was doing in that mad chaos before Christmas has now all started to come back around. Like, I've had people reach out and say, hey, Nat, we had that conversation in November. I'd love to use your platform. Can you give me a call tomorrow? It does pay off. You feel like you're not getting anywhere. You feel like you're following all these leads or trying to do all this BD or writing all this content or going to all these events, and you're going, I'm getting nothing. I don't understand. But you are doing something really great. You're basically your own brand ambassador. You're sharing the story. You're sharing the knowledge. You're sharing the product. And it sticks. And when it sticks with those right people, they do come back around. So for me, the first few months were very hectic. I was very up and down. My moods were very up and down. My motivation was very up and down. But I committed every day, and every single day I woke up, I came to my desk, I logged on, I got ready for the day. What meetings, what people, who do I need to talk to? You know, I gave myself some boundaries, but I also gave myself some rules about, you know, what I can and can't do and what I should and shouldn't do, and tried to create this discipline around getting up and going to work every day and, you know, what I need to do as a founder, but then also trying to educate myself and speak to other founders as well, because I think you can't underestimate having a founder network. Those people really help you. They can, you know, they're at different areas of their business or they're at different times of their business, and they can really give you helpful tips along the way. But also you can feel good about what you're doing too, because you can share about, hey, I've actually already done that. And they're like, oh, great. I haven't got there yet. And that makes you feel like you've done something. Like, you know, because you haven't got anyone recognizing the work that you're doing behind the scenes every day. And like you said, we're sat here working weekends, evenings, sometimes all day long. The first few months of the business, I was literally sat here for about 12, 13 hours every single day. And every weekend I would work on Graduated to get the content right, to write the partnership agreements, to research things. So it's so unnoticed because you're the only person really doing it. But yeah, that was really hectic, that period. And then I think I've come into this new year after a break, just thinking about my glass balls. What are the most important things that I can't drop that will get me moving forward? And what else can I just leave behind that I don't need to stress about right now, because I can't do it all. So what's achievable for me? And then also making sure that I lock in some time with my co-founder, which hopefully will be in the next week or so, for us to recalibrate on those goals. Because I can tell you, when I look at my Miro board, so much has changed. And I go, oh, I've got to change that goal actually. You know, but I think giving yourself that structure, something to follow is really nice. It creates that little bit of discipline around having a new business, and rather than allowing yourself to get really overwhelmed, because that's going to come anyway. So I think the resilience to that is key.
Oh, I just agree with so much of what you've just shared, and just that workflow and understanding what to do with your day when you do have so much in front of you, because, you know, you once you get started, you get going, you get the do, quote unquote, the do to do, which is like, you know, the admin, answering emails, attending the meetings, you know, if you are creating any kind of content, writing it, getting it out there, filming it, recording it, whatever you're doing. And then you've got all the upskilling that comes through that process. So, you know, if you happen to be going through a BD part and you're, for example, trying to pitch to media outlets to cover you and give you some PR, so then you kind of learn, what's the best approach? And then, okay, let me think, you know, you learn as you're doing as well. And that's such a challenge to navigate. And I mean, I certainly take away the advice of planning. Now, this is ironic because I am a very strategic person for other people and believe in the art of planning for other people. But for me, I tend to free flow a little bit. I'm like, I got my plan over here. I know what I'm doing. I find it hard to plan before doing. I sort of follow my energy a little bit. So it was a nice reminder that it's actually okay to plan. It doesn't necessarily take away from the doing. So I think that is a really nice reminder. But also, I think it's so important to highlight in your story there the resilience that's required through the business development and the patience. When I first started my entrepreneurial journey, hand on heart, and actually this has been the case with most things in my life, I am a bull at a gate. I am a very excitable person. I do want to see results quickly. It's like anyone. You get up and I'm gonna hit the gym hard, and then you want like abs in 3 minutes, or after 3 sessions. And that urgency to have the thing and be successful in any way, no matter what the metric is, to achieve success in a short period of time. And I think so much of this is coming from the social media space and the media outlets and the stories that get shared about success and what success looks like. Everyone wants to read how I went from, homeless at 15 to a multimillionaire. But what's missed in those stories is, potentially 10, 15 years of grinding, but at a bare minimum, 6, 12, 18 months of grinding. It's not going to be 3 months, because it's going to take you 3 months just to figure out how to work in this new environment, how to show up as your best self in this new environment, what seeds you plant in those early stages, and where they come out and where they play off later on could be 18 months, from conversation to lead coming through to business coming through. So patience has been something that I have begrudgingly learned through this. And I just think it's something that so many of us need to keep in mind, because we're just going to get those days as well where our mood is just off. Like I've been keeping a journal for probably 18 months now. It's actually been one of the best things that I've done. It's very short, short paragraph at the end of each evening. It's a prompt, but it's a habit that I've kept up with. And I went back just to kind of have a little bit of a look, not read in detail because I've got terrible handwriting, so I can't read half of it anyway. But one thing that I really noticed was the shift in mood. And so one day I can be like, I'll write things are starting to happen. I had an email come through from this today. I'm feeling really hopeful. Listens have been fantastic. So-and-so wants to feature me. Wow, I'm feeling really positive. The work's paying off. And then the next day it's like, I am so tired. I am so grumpy. Nothing is working. I'm shit. Everybody's better. Like it's day to day, like that, hopeful and then defeated, hopeful and defeated. And that is just such a roller coaster. I really feel for partners and best friends and family members trying to be on this journey. It's rough.
Yeah, 100%. It's very, very hard. And I think, there's a whole other story about having supportive people around you, like choosing the right friends and your partner being supportive, or whoever it is that you do life with. But I think, going back to that whole resilience thing, I think if you can master resilience, you can really master a successful business. Because every single business, every single one, like you said, no matter who they are, even the Atlassians and the Xeros and the Adobes of the world, all these amazing places, they have all been through this. They have all been through this. They have all been through the up and down, and they still go through this. It's there's so much of a facade that happens especially in the startup world. I've been in startups. I've seen them for what they truly are, and I've also seen them in the media for what everyone else thinks they truly are. So, I think resilience is key to be able to master not only yourself in your career, in your personal life and everything, but your own business. Because no matter what, it's never going to come overnight. You're going to have to keep building. There's always going to be roadblocks. There are always going to be challenges. There are always going to be things that come up. And if you have that approach, if you're able to flex your resilience in a way that you problem solve, but in a way that is supportive to you, is kind to you, is kind to everyone else around you that's on the journey too, I think no matter what, you will have success in anything that you do. It might take however long it takes, but you will get there. And I'm a massive, massive believer in that. And I think no matter what, resilience is always something that I aspire to grow in, because even though, I think being in recruitment, you have to be quite resilient anyway, but I still think there's a lot of areas of life that I still need to find resilience in so that I'm able to bring my best self. And I think that's just an ongoing non-negotiable.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the thing that I'm trying to focus on as best I can now. And it's, in tiny, tiny little ways through to those big ways. I think of course we know that resilience is so important. But what does that actually look like for us? Like sometimes for me, it can be as simple as, okay, you're trying to problem solve something, or you're trying to get an idea out of your brain. You're trying to start something that feels like it's going to be really big and overwhelming. I know you want to go on Instagram. I know you want to go on TikTok. I feel your little hand going over there to the phone. I know you want to pick it up. Yeah. I know you want to have a little scroll. You want to just dumb out a little bit for a minute because your brain's trying to do something hard. You're trying to get comfortable. That's how our brains work. But just don't for 10 minutes. Put a little bit of space between there. Show some resilience to yourself that actually I'm going to stay with this problem. Although I want to escape the problem, I'm going to stay with it just for 10 minutes. Yeah. And then it's, a little bit longer, and you give yourself a break. Like all of those things from that little tiny micro thing right the way through to I will do this thing for years until it pays off. And I will pick myself up when people say no to me, and I will dust off after having a big cry, dust off and keep going. All the way through. Resilience is learnt, I think, in so many unique ways through this process.
So true. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of my keys this year.
I love it. And you are showing so much resilience right now because, you're still showing up and you're putting in the hard work and, putting in those BD conversations when they go nowhere and you feel like, oh God, this is never going to happen for me. But I've got to just keep showing up to it. What are the big things you want to achieve? And what are some of the smaller things that you want to achieve? Where do you want to see Graduated grow to over the next 10 months, a year, however long?
So I think for me, the most important goals this year is that branding awareness and the educational piece about what values-driven hiring actually means for a business, because it's not just what it seems to be. It's a whole lot more if you dive deeper into that. I recently wrote a blog about it just to kind of explain where I'm coming from and my point of view in values-driven hiring and what it means, but also all of the benefits that come with it. Because it's something so new, I think the educational piece plus then the branding piece is super important to me this year. So I've made my piece that even if I make no revenue this year or no profit, I'm still that step closer to educating everybody to understand what Graduated does, why we do it, and what our value prop is in values-driven hiring. If I get there, I've ticked a really big goal on my list this year. And then I think the next thing for me is about connections, because I do come already with quite a nurtured and big network in the talent space, whether it be with employers or students or, just really experienced software engineering people. But I want to do more than that. I want to connect with more people. I want to share the love with more people. I want to learn from more people, from employers, from experienced hiring managers, from students. I want to really delve deep into what we do and why we do it and be able to, I guess, bring together a story that allows everything to connect up, because I want people to know why we do it and the purpose in allowing these matches to come together. So I think, there's obviously, the financial goals that we all have with businesses and, our strategic roadmap and our release roadmaps and whatever. And those are great. Those are all nice to have. But I have an MVP. I have a personal brand. I have a professional brand. And I have the opportunity to voice it and connect with people. And so if that means I know one more person today than I knew yesterday, and that's great for me. And so, I'm kind of really in that mindset right now. This is not about chasing money. This is not about chasing revenue. This is not about chasing leads. This is about having that commitment to your business and your brand and what you're doing, sharing it so that everyone can understand. And then if something resonates, great, they'll call you. And I guess that's my kind of approach. It's that soft BD. I've never been, and this is probably why I never stayed in agency, I've never been a pusher, like someone hard that's, will go out and do dirty sales and just, get the wins, the quick wins, and there's nothing else attached to it. I really care about the return on investment for everybody that comes to Graduated, whether it be the student, the employer, the university, whoever it is that we're working with, our learning partnerships company. I really care about that return on investment, and there has to be a connection there on values. Because if I don't live values, then how can I run a business that runs values-driven approach, So that's the goals for me. I think it's the visibility, the branding, and the connections. Just having conversations, being out there as Graduated.
They're such wonderful goals to share, and it links right back into resilience, because they're the kind of goals and things that, you don't get a lot of wins, quote unquote, on. You get it can be a really long time between wins in business, in revenue, in awards, speaking from my own perspective, or big spikes or big covers. Like it can be few and far between in those things, and we're going to get where we want to go eventually if we stay persistent, we stay resilient with it. The thing that's going to change is the joy that we experience on the way. So if we can find wins in the fact that you met someone new and have a fantastic connection, and one person who may also share you and your story in a conversation over a cup of tea with someone in 2 months' time, if you can find a win in that, you are absolutely going to enjoy the experience, because we've got to find our wins where we can. So I'm right there with you. This next phase in business for me is all about that connection, being seen, and just allowing things to connect as they need to, which is hard. It's an element of privilege to even say that, because Lord knows, girl, got to get paid. Like, I have got to get paid or this ain't going to continue. So I'm really putting a lot of trust out there. So, it's like, connections is also money, but it is connections, and it is, finding a bit of fun along the way. So fantastic goals.
I agree, but I also think, and I just want to add something there as well, like there's no shame in doing things for those little bits of cash if it's easy and it doesn't take away from what you're doing. There's absolutely no shame in it as a founder. If you want to do something that can help tick the house along or tick the bills along or whatever, absolutely go forth and conquer. But don't let it take away from what your purpose is in the problem that you're trying to solve, that you deeply care about. Because we all have reality. We all know prices are going up, and rental prices and housing crisis, and God knows what else comes with all of that. So, there's an element of still being in reality and knowing what you can do and what you can achieve. So if you need to do something that's on the side, that whatever, but as long as it doesn't take away from this main goal, I think it's completely fine. And I think sometimes you feel like you can't do that because it's taking away from what you should be doing, but you have to be real with yourself. Like, we all need to have an income of some sort to be able to sustain living. And so, no matter how much we love something, no matter how much we're committed, there's still the reality of you've got to put food on the table and pay your bills. So, I'm not shy to say that if I need to do it, and when my money runs out, if that's the case, I will happily flex and do something that brings in extra cash while I'm still doing what I truly love. Because I'm never going to let go of that idea. Like you said, something always comes around and it will always work out at some stage, but you just got to fill the gaps in between.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that advice. It's, we can't be too proud with these things, and it doesn't mean you're any less committed. It doesn't mean your business is any less successful, in that it's you keep going. As long as you keep going, that is success. And however we have to, I love that. So a beautiful piece of advice. So growing and connecting and all of those fantastic things, we need our network, we need our business friends, and you have them here in me and the listener and all the business builders out there. So how can we support you to grow?
I think just everyone becoming aware of who we are and what we're trying to do. And hopefully there are people who are listening that resonate with the things that we're trying to do at Graduated. I know it's only a very small part of our story today, but there's so many more things that we want to do as part of this business. And I think it's just, like I said, that branding, that awareness, that like on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever that gets me an extra person that sees the content that we so mindfully craft every week, that we care about sharing. And again, maybe sharing that in a conversation with somebody who might need a service like ours. And that goes a very, very long way. I like to think I like to do the same for all the people that I'm connected with and how I can help them. So that support is really great, that visibility, that sharing, that caring. So yeah, if it resonates with anyone, or if anyone wants to have conversations about it, then very, very happy to connect.
Brilliant. And I'll make it easy for you, listener, by putting all the links in the show notes, as always. So you can always just have a look at your device, see them in there, head to the Unemployed and Afraid website, where they'll also be there. If you lose the episode in your episode stream, if you're anything like me, your pod episode stream is very, very long with episodes. But it has been such a privilege to hear your story about building Graduated and to get a little bit of insight and everything that's to come. You are just blowing my mind with your learnings today. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Kim. I absolutely love what you do and what you share. So it's been a privilege for me too.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.